This name is stereotypical to radio as I have used FM. As well as this, it has a word which relates to radio. It is short and snappy and makes it easier to fit into idents and jingles.
Online and across Dunstable, you're listening to Volume FM.
However, the name is different and strays away from a normal, typical name of a news broadcast. In my outside broadcast, I used one location, which was the square in the town. This was where the main event took place, and my outside broadcast was talking about the event. As this is a public event, I did not get to choose the location as it happens in the same place every single year. I use normal codes and conventions such as outside broadcasts, vox pops, idents, jingles and interviews. The use of the idents in my broadcast lets the audience know which broadcast they are listening to, as well as giving the station a sense of identity. The use of jingles is important to add into a radio show as it gives a break from the presenter talking. I also use the vox pop that gives some views from the public. I use this to get people's views on the event. This shows that I have interacted with the audience. Here is an example of part of my vox pop.
How excited are you for the lights tonight?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Can't wait to start feeling all Christmassy.
Yeah, I've travelled down today with my two kids. They are really excited for this.
I had to research into the voice, as the voice is one of the first things you hear when listening to the radio. I looked into how the presenter should talk and interact with the audience. The presenter had to create a tone and style which follows the rest of the show. When the presenter was recording, he had to take into account the intonation and rhythm and texture of his voice. The presenter had to create a positive relationship with the audience. As well as this, I had to decide if I wanted my broadcast to use received pronunciation or not. Received pronunciation is the standard English. This is not used much nowadays, and I did not use received pronunciation in my broadcast. The genre of my broadcast is news. My broadcast had to be a news broadcast, so I had to look into the generic conventions of a news broadcast. For my broadcast to fit into the news genre, I looked at things such as subjectivity, objectivity, balance and bias, and other things like that. Also, there are other conventions such as grabbing music, which opens the show, and it is followed by the presenter's name. Usually the headline is dramatic with lots of little headlines after. I did start with opening music that grabs the attention of the audience, who then continue to listen and follow the rest of the show. However, I didn't follow the normal conventions of news broadcasts, as I didn't have different headlines and stories within my broadcast. I didn't want to follow the typical news broadcast of normal weather and traffic updates, so I went for a local event of turning on the Christmas lights. I broke away from the traditional codes and conventions of a news broadcast, and this was due to the contents of my broadcast. I had to break them in order to fulfill my audience wants and needs. I wanted to make my broadcast interesting and attract the younger audience, which is not typical audience for a normal news broadcast. My target audience is women aged 12 to 21. I only based my broadcast around one event, and I had the different conventions used within this event. For example, my vox pop was based on the public's opinion of the event. This is different from a traditional news broadcast, as I usually have different conventions within different stories. My broadcast is completely different from a traditional news broadcast. I went against the generic conventions of news and didn't talk about what they would normally talk about. Therefore, my presenter's voice had to be different from normal news. My presenter in my broadcast is happy and energetic about the event, not sounding sad and serious all the time. There were shows that I listened to that influenced me when planning my show. It gave me ideas that I could put in my final idea. An example of a broadcast I listened to was the BBC World Service. I analysed this looking into structure of conventions as well as the timings of the conventions put together. Looking at a news broadcast made it easier to create my own, as I knew how to put the conventions together. All the research I have done has enabled me to gain a clear understanding of each convention and what makes a news broadcast, as well as being able to apply it to my own work and going against the conventions. I would say that one of the social groups that I have represented was family-orientated and middle-aged people. This is shown in my vox pop when the public were giving the opinion of the event. There was a middle-aged man with his kids, and this is also shown again in the phone call when someone was talking about how their daughter had enjoyed the event. The event I made my broadcast about has normally had families attending together. In my vox pop, I also had a fangirl that follows a typical stereotype of a fangirl. She is a girl who is obsessed with the celebrity. I haven't just stuck to one social group, and have a variety of different people within my broadcast. My broadcast is stereotypical as I have only used English-speaking people. I think my representation would have a positive effect on the audience as I have not singled out any one particular stereotype. A production company would help create the broadcast. It would find the presenters, writers, on-air talent and help budget the fees. The production company is responsible for most parts of the show and therefore if anything goes wrong it will then be blamed on them. I would want my product to be distributed by the BBC Radio. BBC is a very large company and is one out of the 3 institutions that is mainly focuses on speech-based instead of music. Therefore, the BBC is very successful and my broadcast would be heard by a wide audience. My broadcast would attract both older and younger listeners because it is based on a local event, as well as this it is speech-based. My audience for my broadcast is women aged 12 to 21. However, it would also attract the older listeners due to it being a local event and they'll be wanting to listen. The money to produce my broadcast might have come from volunteers, or as it is a public event, it could have come from that. However, if I'm not able to get enough money from this, I could get a sponsor to fund my show. I would have my broadcast aired at Christmas time on the day that the event takes place. When I first picked my primary target audience, I chose women aged 12 to 21. This is a wide target audience and I decided this because of the outcome of my questionnaire. However, while creating my broadcast, I realised it would also appeal to older listeners of any gender. I added a celebrity in my broadcast as the results of my questionnaire showed that more people would listen if their favourite celebrity would be in the show. As well as this, women are more likely to listen because they want to find out the latest celebrity gossip. However, the celebrity I used was female and it not only attracted females, it also attracted males. This could be because they were attracted to the female celebrity. I would say after creating my broadcast, the age range would be mixed as there's different aspects that would interest different people and different ages. As well as radio is a secondary option, so it may just be on in the background. As I said previously, my primary target audience is women aged 12 to 21. These are most likely to be students who like to know about the latest celebrity gossip, as well as going to local events. They would fit into category E of the ABC1 demographic scale. The secondary audience would be older with full-time jobs and families and would fit into C1 or C2 of the ABC1 demographic scale. The change of audience would be because of the contents of my broadcast. The fact that it is about a local event means that the people in the area are more likely to listen. According to Blumner and Katz, there are 4 main reasons why the public consume media. People who listen to the news are more likely to listen due to surveillance. This means that they are trying to find out information that could be useful to them in everyday life. This applies to my audience as they want to find out the information of the event and the latest gossip from the celebrity guests. The hypodermic needle suggests that the audience are passive members and are not in control of their media consumption. This could be argued as we have certain stories and music on the radio that we listen to and that the audience listen to, and it's what they like, so we have to have what they like on the radio to attract them to that specific station. To attract my primary audience of women aged 12 to 21, I had to fulfil their wants and needs. I took into consideration the results of my questionnaire and then planned what to put into my radio broadcast. For example, the majority said that they would be more likely to listen if there was a celebrity involved, so I added a celebrity in to fulfil their wants. This also attracted the secondary audience, as men might have actually been attracted to the celebrity and want to find more about them. I had an interview with the celebrity so the listeners could know more. Here's an example of how adding a celebrity to my broadcast attracted a secondary audience.
And what did you think of Roxanne Stone?
Wow, I just can't believe she came to Dunstable to turn the lights on. What a brilliant celebrity to bring down to do it. Fantastic. She was really, really, really good.
As my broadcast is about a local event, it would have attracted everyone in the local area, as they would have been proud to hear about this event and that it has a big impact on the town. The use of the word you when the presenter was talking also attracted the audience, as sounds like they're speaking directly to you. It is a direct mode of address. Also, the presenter's voice was important for them to sound happy and energetic and actually like what they're talking about, so the audience could know what the atmosphere at the event was really like. There were various types of technologies that helped me create my product. Before starting A-level media, I had never used Blogger or Audition, which I used to create my final outcome. Also, I had little knowledge on recording. I had to learn to develop my knowledge on these programs to get the best outcome possible. To record my work, I used a professional microphone, which gives the best quality of sound. I used Audition to edit my broadcast and put everything together. On my blog, I've explained my editing process. Audition is a professional software used in the radio business. When I first started to use the program, it looked really difficult and confusing, but as the time went on, it became simple and easy to use, and I got the best quality out of it. When I first looked at Blogger, it was new and different from anything I'd used before. However, once I started to use it, I found it really quite easy to use. When uploading my work to my blog, I wanted to have a different variety of ways to upload my work. So I looked into different programs which would allow me to upload my work in a different way. I had came across websites such as Prezi, which is a different way to display a presentation and then embed it to my work. SurveyMonkey, which is a way I can create a survey and also embed that onto my work. And Scribe, which allows me to take a Word document or a PowerPoint and upload it onto my blog. As well as this, I had to upload videos from YouTube and pictures that I have taken of my work and then embed them onto my blog. Over the period of my coursework, I had to learn how to create a presentable and professional looking blog. For my preliminary task, I had used GarageBand and to put all my radio broadcasts together. It was fairly new to me and I had to play about when creating IDEs and jingles, which then got easier as I continued to mess about with them and before I created my proper jingle. However, when it came to my final task, I did not use GarageBand as I've said I've used Audition. Because Audition is definitely more professional and came out with a better outcome. From looking back at my preliminary task, I changed how I produced my final broadcast, which helped me improve dramatically from my preliminary task. For example, I planned what I was going to do in my final, when creating my final broadcast, as well as having the knowledge of the research to help me. Also, the way I was organising my main task to create my final outcome made it better and easier to understand than creating my preliminary task. Planning definitely helped me out. I could not have done my main task without planning. Not planning it as much as I should have done in my preliminary task made me realise that it was essential to plan in my main task. Having a time schedule and a pre-written script also helped me dramatically and meant I didn't have to keep recording bits. My final task had to be 5 minutes long and I had to fill that time efficiently to keep the audience listening. This was easier to do for my preliminary task as I had specific tasks to follow, such as the length of the vox pop. Therefore, I had to plan in more detail in my main task to fill the time efficiently as well as attracting and keeping the audience interested. Having a better understanding of not only the news genre but a better understanding of radio in general really did help me out a considerable amount. When I was doing my preliminary task, I didn't really take into account the codes and conventions. And when creating my show, it affected the recording, as it did mean that I had to keep re-recording bits. However, when creating my final product, I had previously researched into radio and the codes and conventions. This also helped me out to know what to make my broadcast about and how to keep it interesting. In my broadcast, I've shown many of the codes and conventions in radio. An improvement that I would like to make would be to make it sound like some of the bits weren't scripted, because a few times within my broadcast you can hear that people are talking and it sounds like they're just reading off a script. I would change this because I think that by changing this it would make it sound more professional and flow easier. I would do this by just changing some of the actors I use in my broadcast. My audience feedback was mainly positive with only little improvements I can make. The first question I asked was about my broadcast as a whole. There were lots of positive responses saying that it sounded professional. The second question I asked if my broadcast would follow the coding conventions. The majority of the people said it sounded like a normal radio show. However, lots of the people did not know what the actual conventions of the radio show and news broadcast were, so couldn't really give me an opinion on it. Questions 3 to 9 were more specific about the broadcast. They included questions such as, did you think the editing of sounds were good together? Did it flow and make sense? Did the presenter sound professional? Was it all in the right proportion? Was the language appropriate? Was the music appropriate? And were the interview questions suitable? These questions were all quite similar and therefore got similar answers. They were mostly positive, saying that everything sounded good together, it all sounded professional, and it was all the right length and in the right proportion. So the final question I asked was if anything needed to be improved within my broadcast. This got mixed answers, and there was only minor improvements. For example, someone said that I could change the music and make it more Christmassy, since it was a Christmas broadcast, yet I didn't have any Christmas music involved. Someone else told me to change the specialist reporter and make it more realistic. The audience feedback was very important. It helped me understand what they thought of my broadcast and if it would appeal to my target audience. When I look back at my preliminary task, I can see that I've improved since creating it. I have learned how to put a full broadcast together when the right time to put everything in. As well as this, I have learned how to keep people interested throughout a whole broadcast.